In geography, we often talk about the five themes, and this one, human environment interaction, might be the most important. It's the two-way relationship between people and the natural world. Think of it as a conversation. The environment sets the rules, and humans respond. Sometimes we listen to the rules and adapt, but sometimes we decide to change the rules ourselves. This interaction is what defines where civilization started, what they ate, what they wore, and what problems they face today. It comes down to three things: what we need from the environment, how we change ourselves to fit the environment, and how we change the environment to fit our needs. The most basic interaction is dependence. We simply can't survive without the environment. We need fresh water to drink, fertile soil to grow food, and forests for building materials. In early human history, this dependence determined everything. Imagine trying to start a community thousands of years ago. You had to find a location that provided those basics. That's why all the great early civilizations in Mesopotamia, Egypt, and India sprang up right next to major rivers. They depended entirely on that water source to live. If you've ever put on a rain jacket when it's pouring, you've engaged in adaptation. Adaptation means changing your own behavior or structures to live successfully within the environment's rules. People who live in the Arctic didn't try to grow palm trees. They adapted by wearing incredibly warm layers and building small, well-insulated homes. In wet areas of Southeast Asia, people build homes on stilts, raising them off the ground to deal with flooding and monsoons. They aren't changing the environment, but they are cleverly changing themselves and their homes to survive the climate. This is the one that causes the biggest changes: modification. Humans love to solve problems by changing the world around them. When a mountain is in the way, we don't go around it, we tunnel through it. When we need a giant supply of fresh water and electricity, we build an enormous dam to hold back a river. Modifying the environment has allowed human civilization to spread to places that used to be uninhabitable. But these changes are huge, and they often come with a heavy cost to the natural ecosystem, which is something we must always consider. The ultimate result of human-environment interaction is land use. Land use just means how people decide to organize and utilize a piece of land. Why is one piece of land covered by a massive city and another is left as a dense forest? In the beginning, the answer was mostly physical factors. Was the soil good? Was there water nearby? As human technology advanced, human factors like the economy, government, and culture began to play a bigger role in deciding how land is used. One of the most essential land uses is agriculture, or farming. Early farmers didn't have much choice. They had to find flat areas with rich, fertile soil, usually in a river valley. If they lived in a dry area, they had to be clever. In ancient times, people developed irrigation, a major modification where they dug canals to redirect water to their crops. This simple technological change allowed farming to move beyond riverbanks and fundamentally changed how much food a society could produce. As populations grow, land use shifts from open farmland to urban settlement. Cities and towns tend to pop up where there's easy transportation, like a coastline or the junction of two rivers. Why? Because it was easy to get people and goods in and out. The challenge today is urban sprawl. As cities grow, they expand outward, often replacing productive farmland with housing developments and shopping centers. This competition for land is a major issue as the world's population continues to grow. If a community wants to become powerful, it needs to connect with others. That's where transportation and industry land use comes in. Building a huge port requires dredging the seabed and creating massive docking areas, a big environmental modification. Factories and industries need huge amounts of space and energy. They often cluster near where natural resources are found, like coal mines or oil fields. The land is modified to be a giant machine for moving goods, manufacturing products, and powering our modern lives. The long-term weather patterns, or climate, force us to adapt in obvious ways. If you live in a high-latitude region like Siberia, the long, cold winters mean you need heavy stone or wood houses and must store food for months. If you live in a tropical, low-latitude region like Indonesia, the adaptation is very different. Your houses need to be light and airy to handle heat and humidity, and your agricultural cycle revolves around rainy and dry seasons. Climate sets the terms for daily life, and we adapt accordingly. The history of ancient Egypt is the best story of human-environment interaction. The entire civilization was an act of dependence on the Nile River. Without the Nile, all of Egypt would be desert. The river's annual, reliable flooding was everything. But the Egyptians didn't just wait for the flood. They adapted by building tools like the shaduf to lift water out of the river and onto their fields. They learned to predict the floods and organize their entire society around the river's schedule. When people needed to farm in mountainous areas, they couldn't just plant seeds on a steep slope. The soil would wash away. So, they came up with an ingenious modification: terrace farming. They literally carved steps into the sides of mountains. You can see beautiful examples of this in the rice paddies of Southeast Asia and China. The terraces turn a steep hill into flat, manageable shelves. This is a perfect example of humans overcoming a physical barrier, relief, through hard work and clever engineering. One of the most widespread challenges today is deforestation, especially in the world's great rainforests. When humans clear forests for logging or to make space for cattle ranches, it's a huge modification that has serious consequences. The trees are anchors for the soil and homes for millions of species. When the forests are cut down, the soil washes away, animals lose their habitat, and the earth loses a major way to absorb carbon dioxide. It's an unsustainable modification that harms the planet's ecosystem. Another major environmental challenge is desertification, when productive land turns into a desert. This happens when the natural environment changes due to drought, but humans often make it worse through overgrazing or planting too many crops without letting the soil recover. We see this happening today in the Sahel region of Africa, right on the southern edge of the Sahara Desert. This has led to massive international projects, like planting the Great Green Wall, effort to modify the land back by planting a huge belt of trees. Massive modification is required to manage water for modern life. Huge dams are built to hold back water, creating vast reservoirs that supply clean drinking water, irrigate farmland, and generate hydroelectricity. Meanwhile, canals are dug to connect two bodies of water, like the Suez Canal, or to redirect water to dry agricultural areas. While these projects are vital for modern life, they drastically alter the natural flow of rivers and displace both human communities and wildlife. Our use of natural resources determines where our industries are built and where our trade routes go. Resources like oil, coal, and natural gas, which we use a lot of, are called non-renewable because they take millions of years to form. Renewable resources like sunlight and moving water can be constantly replenished. The availability of these resources dictates a country's economic power, and the pursuit of them often fuels global trade and conflicts. Take a look at any world population map, and you'll see the majority of people live near coastlines. This is a long-standing pattern of dependence. Coasts offer rich fishing, mild climates, and most importantly, easy access to global trade via ships. Today, we adapt the coasts by building massive harbors and ports. But this dependence on the coast comes with a risk. These areas are highly vulnerable to natural disasters like tsunamis and rising sea levels caused by climate change. The European country of the Netherlands offers an incredible historical example of environmental modification. Large parts of this country are actually below sea level. For centuries, the Dutch have been building dikes, giant walls, and using windmills to pump water out of coastal areas, creating new dry land called polders. This is a powerful demonstration of a human civilization refusing to accept the limits of the environment and completely rebuilding the land to fit their needs. It's a continuous, necessary project for their survival. Technology is what supercharged human-environment interaction. Before technology, our impacts were local. The Industrial Revolution, with its factories and machine power, allowed us to consume resources and change the environment on a global scale. Later, things like modern farming techniques, using huge machines and chemical fertilizers, drastically increased how much food we could grow on the land. Technology can help us adapt, like air conditioning in the desert, but it also dramatically increases our power to modify the world. Because human activity has caused so many large-scale environmental changes, the modern goal is sustainability. This concept means meeting the needs of the present population without destroying the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. The focus shifts to protecting the environment and using renewable energy sources like solar and wind power. Sustainability requires us to be more responsible about our land use and resource consumption to ensure the Earth remains healthy for everyone. Let's quickly review the 3 key types of interaction. First, dependence. We need the basics like water and soil. Second, adaptation. We change ourselves to fit the environment, like building different styles of houses or wearing certain clothes. And finally, modification. We change the environment to fit us, whether it's clearing a forest or building a dam. Understanding how people in different regions of the world depend on, adapt to, and modify their unique environments is the key to understanding human history and the world we live in today.